Hey, Truth Seekers, welcome back. Zach here. I've already made two videos showing what a hoax the Kalamazoo, Michigan shooting is, a hoax by the numbers, as they always are. Since making that video, the headline has emerged Kalamazoo was 42nd mass shooting of this year, meaning 2016. And keep in mind, this shooting came on February 20th, the 51st day of the year, meaning if the headline were true, of the first 51 days, 42 of those would have involved a mass shooting. For those of us paying attention to the media, documenting the hoaxes, we recognize that 2016 is off to a relatively slow start for shooting hoaxes in comparison with 2015 and the way we were being bombarded with them almost once a week, especially towards the end of the year. If you missed my prior two videos, I showed the significance of 42 in the shooting, how many different ways it was coded, and also that Kalamazoo is located on the 42nd parallel north. If you're new here, I talk about gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words, a Freemason practice. In this practice, Freemason equals 42, so does February. Only February equals 42. If you've missed my earlier work, let me just take you back in time and show you some documented occurrences of this. In the end of 2014, there was a shooting in Oregon. They said it was the 74th shooting at a school since Sandy Hook. And the reason this stands out is because Oregon is the only state with a gematria of 74. Oregon equals 74, it's the 33rd state. 33 and 74 are numbers of Freemason obsession. The word Masonic equals 74. And I want you to notice how in Jewish gematria, Masonic equals 223. At this Oregon shooting that was the 74th since Sandy Hook, they didn't have the parents come to the school. They had them come to a Fred Meyer nearby and pick their children up at 223rd Street, 223rd and Gleason. This is after the same Oregon shooting in Troutdale that was the 74th since Sandy Hook. Notice, again, Masonic equals 74, and Jewish gematria, Masonic equals 223. And this is the shooting in Oregon, where Oregon has the gematria of 74 as well. And also, they had them pick their kids up at a Fred Meyer, which is owned by Kroger. Kroger, the biggest grocery company in the nation, Kroger also shares the gematria of 74. And this is no coincidence. It's because the Freemasons own and operate this nation and much of the world. They control the police, they control the government, they control the media, they control the majority of mega corporations. And in all of these shooting hoaxes, they work together. That's why so often there's corporate advertising in these shooting hoaxes. Since the shooting in Oregon in 2014, there's been another one in Roseburg, Oregon, which happened October 1st, 2015. They said that was the 142nd mass shooting since Sandy Hook. What's up with 142 in the Pacific Northwest? It's this, Truth Seeker. Northwest has gematria of 142. Those are the two major shootings reported in the Northwest. Number 74 and number 142, supposedly. So I just want people to wake up to the fact that this gematria coding is no joke. The powers that be always use it. And by learning the language, you can always see through the hoaxes. This is one of their most important practices. I'm putting it out in the open for all to see. How did I figure it out? I figured it out just by paying attention to the news and working hard to decode what these liars were doing. I have known not to trust the media since I was a kid. On September 11th, 2001, after that day, I knew there was no way I would ever trust them again. That day was the most bogus, obvious propaganda reporting in the history of the world. All of the media was in on it. Anyone with a brain should have registered. Okay, the media is not to be trusted. And now that I can go back in time with these gematria skills, I have shown how rigged 9/11 was by the numbers. 9/11's all numbers. Just like all the propaganda since, just like all the propaganda before. I want you to know something else about 42. February and Freemason equal 42, as we pointed out. When you write out 42 as a word, it sums to 142. They say the shooter was driving a Chevrolet HHR, which is the remake of the PT Cruiser. It has gematria of 142. And so does the word terrorist. And the media is trying to scare people. They want the public to think that there are terrorists behind, every corner. They want people to be living in fear, praying for the government to save them. And in case you missed my earlier post, I showed how they were calling him Jason, Uber driver. You remember earlier this year there was that propaganda in Paris on Friday the 13th? Do you remember the date of that? It was 11/13/2015. 11 plus 13 plus 20 plus 15. 59 numerology on that date. Friday the 13th scare, the Friday the 13th superstition comes out of France when King Philip burned the Knights Templar at the stake centuries ago, the original Freemasons, or at least part of the Freemason ongoing tradition. 59, also truth seeker, is the kill number in Jewish gematria. So it's a fitting number for a fake killer and a fake story. A lot of people got mad at me in my last video because they said that I was being misleading when I said this was a PT Cruiser. I don't think that's a misleading statement at all. This is a PT Cruiser. Of course, Chevrolet has remade the vehicle and renamed it Chevrolet HHR, but as everyone knows, it was the PT Cruiser that created this body style, that created this car. Part of the reason I think they use this in the hoax is for the subliminal. I bet you the majority of you who, when you look at this car, you think of Dick Tracy, and you think about gangsters driving around in cars, shooting out their window. I mean, that's what happened in these Dick Tracy movies. Driving around in cars that look like this, shooting out the window. And we get a story of an Uber driver killing people from his driver window. The headline in the story codes out for PT Cruiser. I don't think that's any coincidence. People like me who don't follow on cars so much, I still call this car the PT Cruiser. Sure, Chevrolet HHR, it connects to the story too. But I think it's all there. I think it's all for a reason. And in case you missed my prior post, he was arrested at 241 East Kalamazoo. Notice that 241 is 142 in reverse. The witness is named Noberto De Ruit, completely fake name. Birthday is also a word with 42 gematria. They just got to get it in there for their story that's all coded with this number. Birthday. Freemason tradition. And as I also pointed out, he was arrested at Shakespeare's pub having the gematria of 58, just like Freemasonry, just like the numerology of the date of the shooting. This is another number that so often shows up in the shooting hoaxes. Also, as I pointed out, these gun shooting hoaxes are causing gun sales to boom. Last year, gun sales nearly doubled. All stocks were up 70%. One of the only remaining industries in the nation, arms manufacturing. Almost everything else has been shipped overseas, but we still make guns here. And these shooting hoaxes, they fuel the gun industry. They also give politicians something to talk about. Have you ever noticed that in our nation, nothing really changes, but the politicians are always talking about the same thing? Gays, guns, God, abortion. They need these stories to keep the sheeple voting and participating in the hoax. They need people's minds circulating, thinking something's going on even though nothing is. It's a nation that runs on propaganda, lies, and deceit. FBI gun background checks on track to break record. This is from the end of 2015 as well. Here's from 2014, record gun sales on Black Friday. They tell us 144,000. Remember, killer equals 144. And Jewish gematria, another number coded into this shooting. But this is how it is. All hoaxes by the numbers. But here's what I want to close out with. This interview I saw yesterday on CNN. I mean, you can't tell me this isn't a hoax when they're putting out information like this. Just watch this. Watch this interview from the supposed last person to ride as an Uber passenger with Jason.
This morning, when we were starting to piece it together, it still didn't feel like it was real.
Derek and his wife were visiting Kalamazoo with their in-laws, the same area where 6 people were being gunned down in the streets, allegedly by their Uber driver.
The morning, the name was released and a picture was released on the news, and we looked at the Uber receipt, and it was It was his face.
This is their receipt. Just a 7-minute ride costing $5.23. What was that conversation like with you and your wife when you guys pieced that together?
I was a lot of blank stares, nervous laughter, trying to figure out, like, did this really happen?
Police arrested Jason Dalton just 20 minutes after they were dropped off. So that means that he had done all of these shootings before you ever got into
Right.
his Uber car.
Right.
Does that freak you out? Does it freak you out?
Yeah, he didn't seem like the type. I mean, our interaction with him was very basic. It was like a 5-minute ride. And I said, "You're not the shooter, are you?" And he said no. And I said, "Are you sure?" And he kind of just said, "No, I'm just tired. I've been driving for 7 hours."
Dalton has no known criminal history, and an extensive background check is required of all Uber drivers.
Let me check.
So anyway, Truth Seeker, that's the end of CNN's interview of supposedly the last passenger with Jason, the Uber driver killer, and we get the interview from the back of his head. Now, I just want you to think about something. This shooting, the story on the surface doesn't add up. And like all the shooting hoaxes before it, we haven't seen any imagery of anybody who's dead. We haven't seen a single dead body from Sandy Hook to the present, but we've heard all these horrific headlines, but not a single body. And so often they give us witnesses who have body language that is completely incorrect, smiling, laughing, talking about their dead loved ones as if they never even knew them. Now this time we get the interview of back of someone's head. And I also just want you to think about this. In the time that the shooting was going on, they were saying the shooter's on the loose. Again, the shooting began at 6 p.m. It went on for 6 hours. 6 people were killed. You would think people in the Kalamazoo region who are hearing this news would probably not want to be going out on the roads just in case. And I'm sure that was the truth for many. As you heard in this man's interview, he supposedly got in the car and asked the driver if he was the killer, to which the killer responded saying, "No, I'm just tired. I've been driving for 7 hours." Doesn't that just sound like bullshit? I mean, if this guy's aware of the shooting, do you think he wants to go out on the road and get a Uber fare? I mean, it's just nonsensical propaganda story after the next. And I'm pretty sure the powers that be, the reason they make these stories so stupid and non-believable is so that the sheeple will essentially believe anything, no matter how ridiculous it is. From September 11th up to the present. These stories never add up. They're always a joke. Anyhow, they said the driver was from Indianapolis. And I want you to notice the gematria of 123 for conspiracy. Indianapolis shares this gematria. And again, this shooting happened on the 51st day of the year. Conspiracy, the small way is 51. The big way, 123. So just another fitting detail in the story. They interviewed him the day after the arrest. The shooting happened February 20th. He was arrested in the early hour of February 21st. From the fare that we saw in the video, he was supposedly in the cab from 12:12 to 12:19, opening minutes of February 21st. And then the next day, they were interviewing him all the way back in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is possible. I mean, he could have drove from there the next day back home or wherever he's from. But really, I think they reported it this way just to get their numbers in there. As ridiculous as it seems to people who aren't in the know, the powers that be love to code their numbers, and by understanding them, it's the giveaway of all of their hoaxes. That's why I pointed out from minute one that it being on the 42nd parallel was a sign of the hoax. Then days later, we're getting headlines that it's the 42nd mass shooting. All part of the ongoing pattern. So learn your gematria, learn your numerology, help expose these tyrants who rule over us with lies, deceit, and tyranny. All right, Truth Seeker, until next time.